What are you talking about? That everyone deserves? Is that what you're talking about? Tell me more. Okay, humility. And now we're going to move into deconstruction and junction. Dr. Flo, would you like to give us like a brief description of deconstruction and then move us into the topics?
I'd be more than happy to. For those of you who are familiar with our network, you know that we have three parts of our mission: to encourage, equip, and empower people. And the only way that you can encourage, equip, and empower people is if people feel confident and courageous enough to have tough conversations. A lot of the BS that we have in our lives is because we are afraid to have tough conversations in our inner that lead to conversations in our outer. And I know there's a whole conversation about innies versus outies in there, but that's not the scope of the room. That's a different topic for deconstruction. Anyway,
a whole different topic.
Whole different.
Like very, very far from the list of topics.
From the scope of the room.
From the scope of the room.
Anyway, we were trying to cultivate a space where we can flesh things out as a community with no fear. Eventually, there will be a live component of this where we'll have other people coming through to help us unpack the tough things, but there's nothing off limits. We can talk here about human sexuality. We can talk here about racial matters. We can talk about politics. There's a huge thing where we're not supposed to talk about politics or religion in the public space, but these are the things that are actually affecting our lives and causing pain as well. And so we didn't want to shy away from having these tough conversations one to another. Tara and I talk about these things in the DMs 24/7. If we're awake and got an eye open and the white lady ain't whispering to me through my phone in the ASMR, you loved it, lovable, you loved it, lovable.
So last night my headphone died, and you know how rave doesn't turn off, right? Rave just keeps going. So like we wake up and Ross is like, I was like, it's my phone. He's like, but there's somebody talking. Yeah, it's my phone.
Oh my God. Tara's into ASMR nighttime binaurals, and she took us on the ride with her last night, and what a ride it was. Because I play it out loud. So she was talking about random habababa by the time 3 a.m. hit, but neither here nor there. So yeah, we have all the conversations here. Nothing's off limits. We are safe. We are full. We are enough. We are whole. And so tonight we're going to unpack a few things. And for those of you who need a teaser, or if you're type A's and you're like, should I stay or should I go? Here's where we're going tonight. We're going to talk about Black Lives Matters and movements and whether or not they're effective or not. We're going to talk about the patriarchy and what came before that or not. We're going to talk about trans bodies as it relates to the presidency. And then we're also going to talk about the global majority and access to resources. And then Tara's going to round us up. And we could jump around. No big deal. All this shit's connected to each other. Talking about World Opera Day and the scandal therein. So hang on to your knickers. Not to be confused with you. I'm joking. It's Deconstruction Junction.
I love it. Where are we starting? Which one do you want to start with? You want to start with Black Lives Matter since that's the thought you lost, or is it there now?
All I'm gonna say is that I was on Clubhouse last night listening in, and there have been a lot of money grabs that have happened at the top of people's power movements, and I really, in our network and across the country, want to believe in restoring power to the people. And I know that it's something that we say casually, but I, as a person who did support and was active in Black Lives Matter in New York, I'm no longer concerned too much with Black Lives Matter movements as much as that humans get to eat. Back to your point earlier, I could cry about this. Because if my black ass, or allegedly black ass, is eating and your any color ass is not, I'm in danger. This also goes to these rich billionaires. There's no reason for that kinds of income. I don't begrudge people's blessings. I told you we count blessings here. However, there needs to be outside of these organizations that can be corrupted by people, like, you know, who couldn't use an extra $10,000, you know? So organizations that support people and movements to take people out of oppressive environments, um, where there's a lack of compression, uh, um, they can be easily co-opted, and they can be easily outmaneuvered and corrupted from the inside, because we don't believe in our network that power in this organization should rest on the shoulders of one person or two people. You want movements to actually spread the leadership across. You want to jump in?
Collective coalition, right? This is something I mentioned like 2 weeks ago. Like, what does it look like when we get behind a group of people as opposed to one leader? What does that look like? And also AMB talks about this in Emergent Strategy. It's the last chapter that I read, which I cannot remember the title of. But Ross, thank you. I love the baby squeals, but it's a lot when I'm trying to concentrate. So Adrian talks about and criticizes really movements like Black Lives Matter, that the reality is that you're just building another capitalistic structure in the same way that nonprofits are still capitalistic structures that act exactly the same as the company, like as corporations, right? And so it doesn't really matter. Like we I think in the public perceive like, oh, nonprofit, let me give to them and da 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 da, like they're so much better. And it's like, actually they're not, because they're still in the same vein of power. And where I want to jump in about the power conversation is that Brittany Packnett is having this sort of conversation about what power is and how we can restructure power so that power is actually with community and with people. And she does that often on her podcast on Undistracted, which I listen to on Friday mornings by my damn self. And I just really think that it's an important topic to remember, that like, yes, the Black Lives Matter, the message is it, right? Like, yes, that is it. And to me, like, everything is about race. Race is a construct, but everything is about race. Like, anything that affects any color of people affects Black people worse. Like, that is just, it's just the way that the hierarchy is set up right now. And so I think the message is great. What happened to the organization was that the organization started partaking in capitalism, right? And in structures that were built by white supremacy. And it's the question that I ask often of like, if we're just like, what good is installing a different group of people or a different person into the same powerful office? Like, what difference does it actually make to replace the CEO of Apple, to replace the CEO of Amazon, to replace the CEO of Starbucks? Like, it doesn't make that much of a difference, because the office is still the office of white supremacy and capitalism. And so until we want to change that structure, there is no moving forward, right? And Adrian says this in her book. She's like, she does talk about the collective coalitions, and she talks about how seedlings grow, and she talks about the root connection, right? And the way that we can come together in those ways. So I really encourage you all, like, this is a foundational text for this organization, Love and Action Network, but I really encourage you all, even if you don't want to read that book, to go jump on Adrian's page, because the way that she talks about things is really, it's very different. And the goal isn't for people to follow her. And I think that's really, she has a lot of followers, but it's not because we're following her. It's because we're following the message, and we're exploring the message of what it means to have collective coalition, what it means to build in the way that nature builds. Like, what does that actually look like? And how can we cultivate it in community? Another person that does this really well, that talks about this often, and she says that relationships are the most renewable resource we have. And her name is Christiana Smith. You can find her on TikTok. You can find her on Instagram. I think her handle is like Mocha Stein something. But anyway, you can find her. KRISTANA Christiana. Christiana, there's an I in there after the T. Christiana Smith. I share her often into liberation conversations because I am just fascinated by her take on the world and the way we could build together. Yeah, that's my share on that.
We talk a lot here in the network about what's beyond, like what's beyond capitalism, what's beyond auditions, what's beyond Broadway, like what lay beyond. The venture capitalists that want to sell things to us in the future, with Elon and them, they're already thinking about how to massively manipulate in the future our everything. They've already got us locked down already. So we need to be thinking outside the box about what liberation and freedom looks like for us in all of these spaces, because it's not going to stop with these racially charged movements. It's going to be all sorts of things. We start getting into water rights and things like that, which are active in the planet. There are people who are having to negotiate with life and limb and blood for water. To live. And let's not even, no, actually, this is the place to get into what's happening in Gaza. Ceasefire now, folks. Why not an arms embargo? Why not? And so this is not isolated to any movement. This is a human thing, regardless of color. And I'm glad that we get to have these conversations. They're more effective than some of the movements themselves, the corporatized ones especially. Didn't you have a conversation earlier in the week with the network about which came first, the patriarchy or...
Yeah, I said it on my Spill the Beans, because yesterday on my Spill the Beans, the last 2 weeks, we've been talking about the underlying current of racism globally. And, I don't know if the person that submitted it, I don't think they just came to the realization, but they put it in a question box. And so I was like, well, I'll talk about it, because I do believe that race, even though it's a construct, we believe in it. Socially, we believe in it. The indoctrination is strong, baby. Right. But I remember a conversation, it was probably last fall sometime, that you, me, and Poppy were having. And we were chitter-chattering about what came first, the patriarchy or white supremacy, essentially. Like did race come first? Did patriarchy come first? And now, as we were just kind of talking, I'm wondering, did hierarchy come first? Because there's not and maybe this is I'm not completing the sentence. The reason that I also want to bring hierarchy into this is because when we think about the way that we're taught history and we look at ancient groups of people, we are always taught that they have a single leader. And how do we know that that is true? Right? So I when was hierarchy introduced? And was it always that men were perceived to be the stronger, the patriarchy? That's what it is. It's just what it is. And then, when I think we can identify when race came into it, because it's very obvious with the British Empire that's created the structure of race. But prior to actually calling it race, there were factions that were at odds with each other, whether that was due to color of the skin or not. It was just that color of the skin happened to be a more easily identifiable thing. When you have a bunch of white people, it's harder to convince them to put some people on the bottom and some people on the top. If you have an identifier that is obvious, then you can discriminate against them easier, right? Go ahead.
My opinion is that this comes way after you're able to gather the resources.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not a history buff. I told one of our in-network family members, cousin Mimi, the other night, like, I did AP history in high school and then forgot everything a day later. It ain't that deep for me. But where my logical mind goes and my thinking mind goes is that you got human beings that have an anatomical weight, heaviness over human females. And men, we know even still in this culture, assert that dominance in size and structure over women. To fully deconstruct, we just watched Diddy drag Cassie down a hotel floor because he outweighed her and his physical musculature. So I believe that it was patriarchy first because of men having anatomical, like I wrote down in my notes while you were talking, Naked and Afraid. I watch a lot of Naked and Afraid and survival shows and stuff. And just not to discredit the women out there, and power to all women. Y'all are the fountain of everything. But there's some things that just anatomically are easier for men to do. And I could easily see men in prehistoric cultures, no different than today, asserting their abusive dominance over people who were smaller and of feminine type, right? Shout out to women and femmes. Then after you're able to assert that physical dominance, and this is just me, I told you I would be drafting in public. Then after that physical dominance takes place, then you're able to then corral and or take neighboring resources until you look like everybody else. And what separates everybody is just who has the resources and who doesn't. Now that we've determined who has the resources and who doesn't, how do we subjugate and divide who deserves? Well, we can vilify the people who are darker than everybody else and say it's them that is in nefarious intent. It's them that's the outsider. Of course, we know from our studies and science that, as you push further from the equator, these people get lighter in their content of melanin for necessary reasons. And then all of a sudden, then we get further down the line into paper bag testing and things like that, because to your point, it's an easy identifier. I want to also be very, very clear that when I speak about white supremacy in all spaces and these spaces these days, I talk about it as if it's the delulu it is. I talk about alleged white supremacy because I've never met a white person that was superior to me. I've yet to meet a white person I've yet to meet a person who had lighter melanin content who was superior to me in any way as it relates to checking the boxes of what it means to be a human being. As it relates to respiration, breathing, thinking, walking, loving people, those lighter people are not superior. Let's not do that. So whenever I talk about alleged white supremacy, I always say alleged because I've yet to see it. And when you look at our governments and when you look at who has been on the throne of this country, making way for who's to be on the throne either way, you don't see something that is superior in thought. You see a low vibration, fear and paranoia kind of thing. But I think the identifiers came way after the men folk had already terrorized people. Remember, I talk about this in Deconstruction Junction. People don't like me to talk about it. I've been equally terrorized in my life by black people, allegedly black, again, as I have by allegedly white people. This is not a racial condition. This is a human condition. But when you can corral resources and subjugate people or make up arbitrary rules as the lunacy, idiocy, and mental disorder that supremacy is, if you can buy into that, then you can start saying, well, look no further as we deconstruct tonight than the Salem witch trials. Those people were white, allegedly. Stick with me, folks.
Yeah, but that's the patriarchy, right?
Yes, yes.
Men seeking out a reason to dispose of a whole bunch of women. I mean, because at the end of the day, the Salem witch trials and the witch trials that were happening in Europe at the same time, right? Like that wasn't an original idea. That was straight up from the European handbook. That it was really, it truly was in the same way that later on, committing women to asylums was a way to just essentially get women out of the way. That was the men preserving power, right? And collecting power. And the only way, and I talked about this a little bit on Spill the Beans yesterday, that a lot of people, most people, because we're all indoctrinated into this, believe that you must take power away in order to maintain power or maintain supremacy. And so the way that they took, in similar fashion to The Handmaid's Tale, which is fiction, but is it? Is it?
Under his eye, just so they don't come to my house in a van. Under his eye, blessed be the fruit.
May the Lord open, child. May the Lord open.
Because Gilead is real.
Very real.
And you start, we're going to get to it in a minute, y'all. And thank y'all for sticking with us, y'all, in Deconstruction Junction with Love and Action Network. That's Tara Praolo. I'm Dr. Flo. Flo and Praolo. We get these things done. But if you start thinking about wonderful, brilliant Madam Vice President in her, Poppy Waters has been very, very clear with me. I cannot take away from this woman's resume and accomplishment by criticizing her politic. Right? I cannot tear down. I cannot tear down her accomplishment becoming a lawyer, and navigating, the patriarchy. Like, to get that far in the game is amazing. Right. But you're also like you're sanctioning bombs being dropped on innocent people.
Consciously, you said it really well. I sent you the video. It was like a 10-minute long video. So if y'all want to see it, I'll link it probably on my Good Trouble Great Works. I'm processing, like, I need to do the podcast review for this week, but I'm also probably going to bring you all a segment on like all of the TikTok videos that I see and the most important ones per week, that I think that you all should really seek out and listen to. But Consciously had this great video, because Kamala's answer on Gaza was really bad. Like, it wasn't as bad as Tim Walz. I really want you all to note that in the vice presidential debate, what Tim Walz said was, and I quote, he said, "Israel has a right to defend itself and expand." That is what that man said. So Kamala's answer is more of the same, right? So Consciously made this video, and what he said after the initial opening was like, he was like, I just want to be really clear that I can vote for her or support her or endorse her, and I can still criticize her, and it doesn't take anything away. And I think this is a really important distinction to make, because, and it goes back to something that we say all the time: nothing is personal. Nothing is personal. So when people are calling you out and calling you in and criticizing you for speaking out, it is not personal. And I often have to remind myself of that people are not coming for me. They're not coming for Tara, the white-facing biracial individual. They're not coming for me. They're mad at the message. And Portia talks about this a lot too. She says at the opening of her videos often, she says, if you are activated, I want you to consider if you are mad at me or if you are mad at the message. Which is it? Because either you're a racist because you're mad at Portia, who is a full Black woman, or you're mad at the message because it's making you uncomfortable. Both take some thought, but let's be honest with what we're doing. Right? So, I think, yes. And I think this is where politics gets so messy. And it's also where, like, I have really had to learn. I hate Donald Trump, right? Like, I think he is just the bottom of the barrel when it comes to people. But when we start criticizing people outside of their policy or outside of the things that they are saying and start personally attacking them. So even like, when we, and I've talked about this before, I was in tears. It was a Sonia Massey episode, I think. If y'all want to find it, it was a Sonia Massey episode. When we say felon and we dehumanize him, we are dehumanizing him. That's not okay. That's not okay. In the same way that when we call her a cop, that's not okay. In the same way that when we try to rip her qualifications away from her because we don't agree with her, that's not okay. Those are things that we cannot do and maintain an idea of moving forward, because that is a personal attack, and that is different than talking about and criticizing the policies that she's talking about. It has nothing to do with her. I want you all to hear this one more time. It has nothing to do with who Kamala actually is. Nothing. Because quite frankly, to get that high in the government, you have to align yourself with very specific ideals, because you have to get money. You have to have millions of dollars. And you do not get that from the lowest rung under capitalism. You get that from rich super PACs. And that is the God's honest truth, that Kamala may not be actually telling you what is going on in her noggin. She's probably just telling us talking points.
Wait. Pause on the play. Pause on the field, because I'm gonna let you know what's real. Any black person or allegedly black looking person who's worked in any corporate environment or any structure or institution, including that nonprofit industrial complex you talked about earlier, knows that she in no way is saying everything she's thinking, because she would not be safe to do so. Why do you think our black asses are sitting here on YouTube with two people and our dicks in our hands and she's up there? Right. She didn't say anything. Like she didn't rock the boat.
She wasn't radical. Or maybe she was at some point, but I think every single one of us, and we're getting a little off topic, but every single one of us as activists, as people that care about things, right? Because at the end of the day, all an activist is someone that is mobilized by something they care about. That's activism, right? And it doesn't have to be race. For me, it's race. For me, it is uplifting Black people. That is my mission, is uplifting Black people. Right? That is the thing that I do. Lifting every voice. That is the thing that activates me. Right? For other people, it is abortion. For other people, it is choice. For other people, it is guns. For Jacob Wetterling's mom, it was getting laws about sex offenders. Right? All activism is believing in something so deeply that you mobilize. That's it. Right? I think a lot of times we make it super complicated.
Ooh. Shameless plug for us, which is why very, very soon you all are going to be getting activist training coming out of Love and Action Network. And don't get scared. All it is training around how to present your voice in a courageous and confident way. Because if you can speak your ideas into the world, you are already activated. And I love that, Tara, because we think that being an activist is being with a sign in the street as a police dog gnaws on your jiggly bits. But it has happened with sensitivity. Also, trigger warning, I guess, to your jiggly bits. But it's not always that though. Sometimes it's you saying, I love. And I'm going to say so. I love in these ways, and I'm going to say so. The one thing the lady has said repeatedly from her teleprompter of life is that she believes in a loving God. And I know that there are people in our network who don't believe in God at all, but I think the distinction present also, and me every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, frankly. Right. It is what it is. Only alleged God can judge me, bitch. Right. But I do love that she believes in a loving God, because that is a clear distinction that needs to be made, I think, in this climate, that there are many different versions of the divine that people are subscribing to. Right. And they're not all, if you pay attention to the words and the actions and the deeds, not all divinity being spoken about in the public space is loving. Yeah. And quite frankly, a lot of them are hateful, right? Quite frankly, a lot of them are scornful, right? And to complete the thought earlier, she may have been an activist at some point, but we all come to a point, and I often get to this point. Do I fix it from the inside, or do I push from the outside? How ostracized do I need to make myself
in order to push in.
Girl, baby girl.
Do I stand inside of the prison, some may say, to change it? And I have found a way to straddle both, right? I am on the outside. I do not take auditions. People still offer me jobs, right? I'm on the outside in that way. I create my own albums. I sing what music I want to sing, da, 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 da. But I am on the inside in that I do work in nonprofit organizations. And I work for at least 4 of them, right?
Wait, I'm stuck on something. What say you about the delusion? Delusion? What I'm looking for the word for when things dissolve, when dilute. The dilution.
Yes, dilution.
The dilution.
Dilation. Dilution, not dilation. Not dilation.
To dilute, the dilution. There is when a person has to step into a higher space. You've been in these nonprofits. I've been on these large stages. There's a certain dilution of the message of activism and radical love that happens. What say you about the dilution of love, of having to say, this love is a little too strong for that moderate voter. Let's just water it down a little bit so that it's not too spicy or not too sweet. Like what? Like I hate that.
I think, isn't there is an MLK quote about the moderate. And I think he specified the white moderate.
And how dangerous they are.
Right. And I think playing to the moderate is dangerous. And I think it's dangerous because back to what is activism and what is radicalization? At the end of the day, it's just something that we really believe in with all of our person that we want to move on it. Right. And so why play to the moderate when we should be playing to the extreme? Right? Why play to the moderate as if the moderation is going to save us? No amount of not spending $5 on your cup of coffee is going to make you a millionaire. No amount of turning off your water faucet is going to save you from climate change. No amount of living your life less joyfully and less and less open is going to save you when they come knocking on your door because you refuse to stand up for the people that were going down before you. No amount of moderation will save you. And no amount of moderation will get these people elected. That is the thing. Both of them currently are trying for the moderate vote because they both know that on some level they have the extreme vote. But everybody has an extreme. Everybody has a radicalization, and everybody has a capability of utilizing both of those in activism. So I do have a problem when we dilute the message. And I think we can be clear that dilution does not mean having broad, long messages. You can have potency in a short message. The problem is when your message doesn't actually mean anything and it just sort of slips away from you. Right? And it doesn't do anything. It goes through a sieve like the freaking Vikings defense the other night. I'm
still bitter. And everybody who's watching that game knows that they saw the mask grab. And if you say you didn't see it, you lie about other shit too. You do. And that ref was like, I didn't get a good enough look. I promise you, he's on his way to divorce because he's a liar as well. He's a liar. It was bad. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of a dilution, I want to step into a dilution of hope. There's a lot of campaigning that's happening around this hopeful message. There are people even on the Trump side who are hoping for things to stay the same or to regress back into some former time when America was quote unquote great. 400 years of chattel slavery notwithstanding. But as hope continues to seem to melt at the seams of what we are experiencing, we're also seeing trans bodies under attack. And I know that a lot of people aren't comfortable with this. I want to just try to frame this discussion in the most compassion possible by saying that I believe that good humans, which I believe are most humans, have a understanding of how they feel in their bodies and their hearts and their minds. And I just want to frame this that I'm one of these people that's like, if there's no harm, there's no foul. Like, if there's no personal, like, collective harm or global harm or personal harm to me, no foul. And so I just wanted to frame that before we step into talking about trans people and their bodies, because frankly, for the next few minutes that we talk about this, I shouldn't have a fucking opinion because I don't live that experience. The only opinion that I do hold is that their idea and their self-knowledge and self-concept of what they want for their bodies and their body autonomy should be protected and preserved. I also feel the same way about Gilead and women's bodies being protected and reproductive rights. But how we got here was Tara sent me this clip of Vice President Kamala Harris interviewing where?
I'm not sure where she was, but in this interview, essentially, she was pressed twice on whether or not people had a right to gender affirming care. And Kamala skirted twice by essentially saying we should follow the law, which is not pro-trans, for sure ain't. And it's not it's not pro-choice either, y'all, because there's a lot of gender affirming care that cis people get. And James is Smiling on TikTok talks about this a lot, that the care that we receive as cisgender people often is gender affirming care. Like going to get a boob job is gender affirming care. And we have access to that. But a trans person often does not have access to top surgery.
Could you say that one more time? Because I never, that boob jobs and the trans lived experience never crossed. Say that one more time, please.
Yeah, and I want to point you to James is Smiling, y'all, because that is a trans person with the trans experience that talks frequently about Planned Parenthood and talks frequently about the trans experience and talks very frequently about the idea that like gender affirming care is part of our daily lives. Like it just is for cisgender people. We just don't think about it. And so we have access to gender affirming care in boob jobs, in butt lifts, in, when we go in and we get feminization, right? When we go in and we get a nose job, right? Like these are gender affirming cares. When men or those that have penises, trigger warning for those of you that are uncomfortable with genitals.
It is triggering to have a penis sometimes. I'm sorry. Yeah. I should joke about trigger warnings. Keep going.
Right. When you all go in for Viagra, that's gender affirming care, right? And so James is Smiling talks about this just very frequently. So I cannot like credit anything else. And I listen to a lot of trans people like that. This is something that cis people have access to that we just don't even think about. And I do like in terms of reproductive rights, what you were talking about. And this is the point. The person in the video who stitched that video, and I don't remember what the name of that person was, but essentially they were like, the only difference is reproductive rights. And what I want to say to you is like, you framed reproductive rights, Millie, come on, framed reproductive rights around women. But the reality is that reproductive rights actually affect trans people too, right? Reproductive rights affect trans men. And in fact, they affect men, right? They affect cisgender men. And so like, this conversation, and this is where a lot of white women start twisting reproductive rights, right? Because then it's women's rights. Then we're oppressed. No. And this is also something that I needed the Democratic Party to get more pro-trans about, because oftentimes they say, and women's rights. How many times have you all heard Kamala say this? How many times? Kamala, my bad. How many times have you heard her say, and women's rights are under attack? And women's rights are under attack. No, friends. Roe versus Wade being overturned affect far more than women. Far more.
Including the husbands who watch their wives bleed out in the parking lots because they don't have access to care. And those men have
access to mental health care.
Who then don't. Yeah? Cut out for a bit there. Yeah, who don't. Yeah. Who then become ticking time bombs in our society. So it is very far reaching if you can see the interconnectivity of it all. One thing you did say that was so powerful, Paolo, and I love you for it, is you said casually, but it's truly who you are, behind the scenes and on camera. You listen to trans people, and so do I. And I love that about you. I love that we listen to trans people. I think that could be a great start. Some people come to us in our DMs all week and say, like, where can I get started? Where can I begin? Like, go on TikTok and follow 10 trans activists and leaders and hear what they are saying about the things that are important to them. Same thing for you people who come up, what can I do for Black and brown people to help? And they're like listen to them. Like, y'all act like.
So there's an acronym that White Woman Whisperer on TikTok. Again, shout out Black activist. Shout out. And Portia's best friend, by the way. But anyway, so this is why I love both of them. But White Woman Whisperer has an acronym. It is WAIT. W.A.I.T. And it means, why am I talking? And that is very specific. If you are going into a person's comment section, you should ask yourself, why are you talking? Prior to commenting. And if you do not need to put that comment there, then go find your journal. Move on with your day. Why am I talking? Should I be talking? And we watched this video by Christina, right? Not Christiana, but Christina, who, laid it bare about how, if we're talking about texturism, she ain't gonna come out here with her 3B brigade and be talking about it. She can go listen to the 4C girlies in the corner. You know what I'm saying? And for me, when I'm talking about colorism, I get all of my colorism topics from those that have more melanin content than me, right? I follow The Darkest Hue. I follow Colorism is Healing. This is what you can do. Diversify the voices in your earballs, right?
And one more thing I'm going to say, and this is a hill that I'm going to not die on. This is a hill that I'm going to rejoice on. None of us are truly going to be liberated until trans Black women can walk down the street without being bothered, in danger for their lives, until Black trans women have housing and can eat. Like, we're not going to see the lift, because it starts with
trans disabled women are free, and the darkest melanin content at that.
The darkest berry in the bunch.
Right.
And when she is liberated, then we'll start to see all the other boats rise. And the people at the top can't see that, but you can't leave. Like, there's Elon. There's no rocket ship going anywhere right now. We're all on this ball of molten lava together, and we have to figure out how to love one another, or it ain't gonna cook.
Right. And to land this a little bit, I'm giving you guys a lot of people to follow, but it is only because I have learned so much from these people. I have learned so much from James is Smiling. A shout out to Sharky Lemon Myrtle, who does the work locally in Minnesota for trans people and is working on multiple campaigns of transgender people. Like, that is an account. Go follow them on Instagram. I think he's primarily on Instagram.
Do you think that they would come here?
I think that Myrtle would love to come here. I will ask him in DMs. He's very busy because it's election season, but after election season,
yeah, I mean,
we could
Y'all, we literally got 2 weeks until we know how we got to play chess like everybody else.
Right.
So yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So those are a couple trans people to follow. And Sharky Lemon gives a lot of other people to go follow. And so does James is Smiling, actually. So those are very good people to start diversifying. I would also recommend, in terms of disability rights, please go follow Crutches and Spice. Please go follow Crutches and Spice. Disabled Black woman, amazing content, communication specialist, like that content. And I want to be real with y'all that sometimes when I'm watching a Portia content, or when I'm watching a Crutches and Spice content, or when I'm watching a Christina content, some of that I'm like, oh God, I got to come back to this. Like, I'm feeling some type of way. Why am I talking? I got to listen to that 4, 5, 6 times before I can process it, because in America, we don't think about disability rights. We just don't, it doesn't cross our minds in a way that is meaningful. And so to talk about Crutches and Spice, or to go listen to Crutches and Spice, is so, so important. And again, Crutches and Spice will often talk about other disabled creators that you can follow. There's another one on Instagram. Their handle is Fidgets and Fries. And again, like, this is a place you all can start. Not only should you be listening to Dr. Flo and I, or could you be listening to Dr. Flo and I? And those of you that have lighter melanin content, hello, because this is something phenotypically, I'm white, right? I'm white until I'm not white. Y'all know what I'm saying? Some of y'all know. Some of y'all don't know. And if you don't know, y'all best be getting over to my Lift Every Voice. But if it makes you comfortable to hear this message from me, I need you to go listen to Dr. Flo say the message. And then ask yourself why it makes you so much more uncomfortable to listen to Dr. Flo say the message than this saying the message. I need you to go listen to Crutches and Spice say the message. And ask yourself why it's more uncomfortable to hear them than to hear me, a cisgender, white-facing, biracial person, right? Like, this is so, so important to diversify the things that are coming into your sphere, right? And I was challenged the other day by a TikTok video, and I cannot remember the creator, but they essentially were like, when I first started to be an activist and I first started really getting, they're a Black person, and they were like, I followed all these Black women, and suddenly in the last year and a half realized that Black women can be wrong too. And I was like, oh, like I had that realization like a few months ago when I was like, this girl is coming left, like straight left, like this is not good. And how can I challenge that? It was actually a conversation about, I'm pretty sure it was about Gaza on my feed. A Black person came into my comment section and tried to say something. I was like, I'm gonna be respectful, but respectfully, you're coming left. That's not okay. And so anyway, this all to say, diversify, right? So like James is Smiling and Sharky Lemon are white people. They are white people. And it's not to say that automatically Black people's words are right. It's just to say that we need to hear them out, those of us that are more marginalized than other people, right? And we have to have a variety of that coming into our earballs and into our eyeballs in order to progress the world forward. We have to listen to each other.
And I could not emphasize more to take humans as humans.
Yes.
As I move through the world, I approach every human as a human. And with the guidance of many therapists, I take each human as a human who is doing an action. And I only respond to the action or the behavior. I do not relate to a guy that I see who's lighter than me on the street as a threat. You know, my father, may he rest in power, was very much like, don't trust Whitey kind of energy.
Yeah.
But imagine that paranoia that you have when there are good people who are lighter in skin who want to help, who are sitting on top of a lot of money and resources and things to help to aid your causes. But if you have a fear and paranoia about someone who's different than you close yourself off to the possibility of something magical happening in your life because you have that preconceived notion. It's literally what a prejudice is.
Right. Well, and I know we have to wrap up, but like, you know, when I got kicked out of that group, that is a space. This is when I talk about separate but equal.
Wait. You can't. Okay. So for the 30-second context, and we know we're a little over, folks, we thank you to the viewers who've hung on to the live taping this long. You're going to get the replay over in Love and Action TV and on Spotify and all the podcasts. We're so grateful for y'all coming along with us on the journey towards loved and lovable. But I got to tell y'all for a second about how Light Bright Tara Praolo got booted.
Right. All that came to mind was like a skull on the Light Bright.
Woo! Yes, but Tara got kicked out of the Black Game of Thrones House of the Dragons Facebook group. And they didn't ask any questions. They just went down and someone saw that they were lighter and brighter and completely kicked her out. And it precipitated to a couple weeks of us just laughing about, like, how do we get her back in the space? And we really, that never resolved. And she'll come back after dealing with domestic things and hopefully share more about how it feels to be kicked out of all Black spaces. I do believe personally, as a side, that Black people do deserve affinity spaces where we can heal and build and come together. However, you know, I'm not sure that it's a Facebook Game of Thrones space. All right, so we've been here for a long, long time. Oh, she's back. Okay, so yes, what is it?
Okay. So first of all, you know, Black affinity spaces, white, we don't have white affinity spaces. But this space, right? Women.
Well, I mean, someone could call America a white affinity space, but go off
that part. So, you know, and I challenged someone on this a couple of years ago, and they got really mad at me and never spoke to me again. So that's cool. But it was shockingly, it was a white woman. Anywho, separate but equal. You know what I'm saying? And this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning about power structures and how power is preserved. And, you know, if we're just creating another space under the same type of leadership, under the same type of hierarchy, are we really doing something? Or are we just creating the same with a different person at the helm, you know? And so anyway, you know, getting kicked out of that group has taught me, I mean, I've been kicked out of other spaces, Black spaces, but why do we need to treat each other differently? And at the root, and this is what I was kind of talking about yesterday on my Spilled Beans, of like, how do we rid the world of racism? Well, we rid the world by relating to each other as like we're not different, like you were saying, walking down the street, you know, like I don't cross the street. I know people that are light that cross the street when they see darker skin, right? I know small people, like not like small people who weigh not a lot, who are short, that cross the street when they see bigger people, right? Because they know that there's a quote unquote power dynamic. And so they're just automatically fearful. But what if we just weren't fearful of each other, right? And of course, like your physical safety, we do not want that harmed. But at the end of the day, most people are not, as Dr. Flo said, we like to believe that most people are good.
And let's be very, very clear, because I lived in New York City full time for 10 years. We're talking about being safe with humans within a container of safety. I would not go on a meet and greet through the New York City subway system at 2:00 in the morning trying to heal the world and make it a better place.
Right.
Okay, I'm just saying that'll get you stabbed and cut, bitch. But on your job or in the coffee line or at your synagogue or at your church or at the library, like those spaces where there's no imminent threat, I think we all could stand to have less fear and paranoia is what I'm pointing to.
Right. Agreed. Fully agreed.
Yeah. Okay, so if y'all can hang with us for maybe we'll try to nail it in 3 minutes. We've talked about it all night. Y'all know that the global majority, which are people who do not look like the ruling class, need resources. I'm going to take an opportunity because I am taking radical risk in my network to say that one of the global majority led organizations that needs access to resource and money is Love and Action Network. We are supported by donors and sponsors all over the world, including the Priola Foundation, for which we are extremely grateful. But just know that people who don't look like you, of all don't look like yous, because there are really impoverished white people in the mountains who need our love and support as well. Hand to God, like if you follow the opiate crises and the
well, the hurricane devastation. I mean,
right.
Like I said it in my Spill the Beans yesterday. Hurricanes don't discriminate. Babies, hurricanes don't discriminate.
Mother Nature showed us very clearly that she don't care about your color. Humans are down here playing black mama, white mama, but when it came to COVID and hurricane, such and such, because it's always changing names and blowing people away. Mother Nature, that's why we rely on emergent strategy here. Like Mother Nature has every lesson that we need. And that also contributes to community and interdependence. Tara, I'm going to give you the last piece of chicken about global majority before we talk about World Opera Day and let these people have the rest of their day back.
I'll segue into it. Okay, so what often happens, what I find, and this is the part that I'm trying to figure out how to proceed. But we come across a lot of people, Dr. Flo and I, Love and Action Network, us individually, we come across a lot of people who have really great messages and really great stories, and they don't have a way, or have yet to discover a way, or don't have the bandwidth to promote that message, right? Or to get it out there. We've come across countless people who you click on their website and the website link is broken. And one of my mentors, Fiona Flight, said this the other day. She said, artists make it so hard for ourselves to make money. Why are you hiding your donation link? Why is it third in your list of links? Why is your program hiding on the bottom of your link tree? Why do we make it so hard for people? Right? Like, and anyway, that's a little bit off topic, but like artists, which I believe a lot of us are, artists and creatives, those of you out here on TikTok lives, on Instagram lives, on Instagram, on Facebook, and you're sharing a message that you believe in. Again, what is activism? A message that you believe in so deeply that you move, right? So you're moving, but you haven't infrastructured that move. There's nothing underneath of you. So you have broken links. You're hiding your links. You don't know how to make a pretty graphic. So you're just showing up with these weird pictures that don't make any sense, right?
And while we're there, folks, because we deconstruct here, and I don't want to take us too much longer, y'all need to know that standing in front of either the sunrise early in the morning or the sunset is enough to make you look good. Like, if you just know when your golden hours are and just stand in front of a mirror and make your content, you don't need fancy lights like we have, saved and worked into. You could stand out in the yard and face the sun, you know.
Don't need makeup.
You don't need makeup. And you definitely don't need makeup, Paolo. You're beautiful.
You don't need makeup.
You're beautiful.
Thank you. But So I mean, where this is going is we meet so many of these people that are people of the global majority that A, don't have the resources, or B, don't have the access to people like Dr. Flo and I that can craft you these things, right? Because we've done it for ourselves, and we've done it for each other, and we've done it for multiple people that have since left this organization better than they came.
Better equipped, encouraged, and empowered.
Right.
And if you don't feel that way, send me a comment card and let's talk about it. But there's nobody who's left in the last 3 years that we've been cooking this. There's not a single, pardon me, my French, English, and Spanish, not a single motherfucker that left here who did not have some nugget and kernel of wisdom and belief in themselves to go and get it.
Right, right. And so this is just to say, community building, community infrastructure, community care, it is available to you. It might not be, it doesn't have to be Dr. Flo and I, it doesn't have to be Love in Action Network, but these places exist, and please walk into them. Please have the trust to walk into them, because all they want to do is help you lift your message. And you know in your heart, as Dr. Flo was saying earlier, we all know ourselves best. You know in your heart when you come across the people that are willing to help you and that will help you, right? So trust that. Now, briefly on World Opera Day, y'all can go look at my last post on the Instagrams. If you're here with us right now, if you're here with us in the future, why don't you just lay them on the ground there? And if they scream, I will get up. But anyway, World Opera Day. I see a lot of people being out here like, opera changed my life. And you know who they is? They be white people. And what I want to tell you is that any industry that you're in is affected by white supremacy and capitalism. And opera, as it's clinging to relevance, has fallen so deeply into that there is nothing to celebrate on World Opera Day. Free the art. I believe I said free the damn art, because there could be more without the gatekeepers. And that's my message. What gatekeeper is keeping you? Is it you, or is it an outside force?
And I want
to more art today.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. If you do have gatekeepers in your life, I would not be myself. I didn't tell you to start doing your squats so you can jump a gate.
That part.
Okay? Because some of these people, because of family power or low self-esteem, they struggled inside of themselves and inside of their hearts to get what they got, and they want to make you suffer to get what they got. And so they will put a gate in front of you. Because I took 4 years undergrad and 2 years in my master's, I'm gonna make you wait for 6 years to get the same knowledge. Tara didn't do that to me. She handed me the knowledge and the tools and things to help build this new, improved version of my life, for which I'm very grateful. But there are people who are trying to create gates because they don't want to see you win. Let's be very clear about this, folks. There are humans who wake up in the morning, and for whatever reason, it could be bitterness or heartbreak or disappointment, they simply do not want to see you win. And when they do put a gate down in front of you, it's important that you say, oh, you putting a gate? You got a gate here? I've been doing my squats, and I'm ready to jump hurdles over everything that tries to stand in my way. You cannot disturb my peace, and you cannot mess with my dream. Why? Because I'm loved and lovable. And so I'm going to give Tara a last opportunity to tell you where to find her on the internet and what she's offering to the world out of her services. I will do the same, and then we will say good evening to everybody on the East Coast.
Y'all can find me at Tara Priolo Studio on all the platforms that matter, tarapriolo.com/links, or you can get there from liveinaction.bio.link. I am offering currently Lift Every Voice Substack, which has all that you can want on there right now. I launched a podcast this week called The Drip Project. There are 2 episodes. There's an intro episode and then an episode on Kamala and the disappointment I have with her campaign, and my understanding of people not voting, and how I think we need to stop using shame and all that stuff. I am also offering Liberation Conversations, which is a chat over on Telegram where I'm pushing y'all to think about things. And eventually it won't just be me leading it, but for now, until we get some people that are activated, it is what it is. And then just stay tuned to my Instagram and my not Liberation Conversations, sorry, Lift Every Voice, because there is going to be stuff coming. Dr. Flo and Fiona have been pushing me to come out with an activist offer, which I don't know what that looks like yet, but it is coming. There will be more offers for Black Friday, things that are coming up from the vaults that I haven't offered in a very long time. So just stay tuned to that. And there'll be something in a price range for everybody, I hope. Dr. Flo, what about you?
Yes, as you can see, Tara, and as you've seen over the last hour and 23 minutes, Tara, we did it today. We felt good about life today. Oh, it's also the weekend, which is why we have a lovely live audience. Shout out to our live audience that's here. Y'all can catch this back on Substack and also on Spotify. But my point was, as you've seen over the last section of time that we've been together, Tara has an amazing way of chewing up the worms and regurgitating it into the mouths of the people. She has an amazing ability to take large concepts and ideas and to distill it down into nuggets that you can use to improve your life. So I could not recommend her and her methods and her studio. What I'm working on is the Love Experience, Concerts of Hope. I am touring a Christmas show this winter season that's going to include local singers, dancers, actors, and musicians up and down the coast. I want people to feel inspiration for themselves by working with me. And those are the in-person opportunities. If you are a person who also is remote, like my students in Texas and in other places throughout the country, you can always coach or consult with me in the areas of vocal performance. Small business leaders can also come together with me for marketing and business development. I have been working in the public space as a professional for the last 20 years in multiple industries and sectors. And so all of my knowledge I hand down, just like Tara, into the people who really want to get up and grow. Like I always say, I help bold dreamers follow their bliss. So if you're feeling bold today, or if you're feeling froggy and you want to jump into your dream, just send us a DM. I'm Andre in the Flow. That's Tara Praolo Studio. We've had a blast being with you all tonight. And until next time, stay in your power, stay in your joy, stay loved and lovable, and we will see you around our network. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Take care.